Why do some men remain calm, respected, and unshaken, while others get dragged through emotional chaos, losing their identity piece by piece? It's not luck. It's not fate. It's knowledge. And once you have this knowledge, everything changes. Because when you understand it, she can no longer dangle love like a prize. She can't play with your emotions. She can't keep you trapped. You begin to see through every manipulation, every test, every silent treatment, every guilt trip. This isn't just another relationship talk. This is a wake-up call, a psychological decoding of the hidden dynamics that control men without them realizing it. So, take a breath, because what you're about to learn will end the games forever and put you back in control of your life. But before we start, I don't want you to just watch this video. I want you to claim it as a turning point in your life. Take 1 second right now. Hit subscribe, press like, and comment below these exact words. I refuse to be blind anymore. That's your declaration. That's where your transformation begins. Now, let's enter the first truth, one that shatters illusions most men never question. Truth number 1. The difference between conditional and genuine love. Most men walk into relationships with blind faith. They carry a beautiful illusion that when a woman says, "I love you," it means she loves all of you, your flaws, your scars, your failures. They imagine her love as an eternal flame, pure, unconditional, unwavering. But here's the cold truth. Most modern love is conditional. It lives under silent terms and invisible contracts. Think about it. How does her tone change when the money slows down? How does her affection shift when your attention fades? What happens when life stops being exciting? Suddenly, the warmth feels colder. The laughter feels forced. The affection feels transactional. That, my friend, is conditional love in action. This doesn't mean women are heartless. It means they're wired to respond to security, to stability, to emotional and material provision. When she feels safe, her love blossoms. But when that safety fades, her affection often follows. And here lies the danger. Men ignore this reality. They keep giving endlessly, time, money, loyalty, believing sacrifice guarantees love. But life doesn't reward blind devotion. Men pour themselves empty, and when she finally leaves, they whisper in confusion, "Why wasn't my loyalty enough?" Because loyalty doesn't cancel conditions. Effort doesn't erase expectation. The problem isn't that conditions exist. The problem is that men refuse to see them. They cling to the fantasy that love mirrors their effort, and that fantasy breaks them. But once you open your eyes, you stop being bitter. You become wise. You stop being seduced by sweet words and start observing actions. You stop judging her love by how she treats you at your best and start seeing how she behaves at your worst. That's where truth lives. You'll realize much of what looked like devotion was admiration for your consistency, gratitude for your provision, or comfort in your stability, not genuine attachment to you as a man. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It forces you to stop over-investing. Love is not a blank check, it's a mirror. You learn to set boundaries, to require reciprocity instead of assuming it. If she only loves you at your peak but disappears when you fall, you already have your answer. If her warmth rises and falls with your wallet or your mood, you know what her affection is built on. When you understand that, you stop being a servant to illusion. You become deliberate, cautious, powerful. The man who learns this doesn't shut his heart. He guards it. He gives love consciously, not carelessly. He no longer begs for approval, because he finally understands the price of his energy. And when a man reaches that point, the game changes forever. Most men have no idea how powerful their attention truly is. They give it away carelessly, as if it's worth nothing. But attention is currency. It's not free. It's one of the rarest forms of energy you possess. And in the modern world, it's constantly being hunted. Every glance, every text, every like, every late-night reply. It's all energy. And energy is influence. Influence is power. Yet most men throw it away like coins into a fountain, hoping for love to wish them back. When you like a woman, you drown her in attention. You text constantly, you comment on her pictures, you praise every detail. It feels harmless, even romantic. You think you're showing genuine interest. But here's the psychological truth. Abundance kills value. Anything that flows too freely loses its worth. The moment your attention becomes predictable, it becomes invisible. Women know this instinctively. They understand how validation fuels their confidence. They know the high of being desired, of being chased, of being wanted. And often, it's not even about love. It's about the addiction to attention itself. The more you give, the less it's appreciated. And here's the paradox. The man who gives everything gets nothing. Watch what happens when you stop. When you become silent instead of chasing. When you withdraw your validation and focus it inward. Suddenly, silence becomes louder than words. Your absence starts speaking volumes. Curiosity creeps in. She begins to wonder, where did he go? Who has his attention now? That subtle fear, that quiet uncertainty, creates attraction stronger than any compliment ever could. Why? Because human psychology craves scarcity. The less something is available, the more it's desired. When your attention becomes rare, it becomes valuable. Your compliments start to matter. Your time feels like a gift, not a guarantee. Your presence feels like privilege, not routine. Most men misunderstand this. They think pulling back means being cold or playing games. It's not about cruelty, it's about self-respect. When you realize your attention is sacred, you stop wasting it on those who don't earn it. You stop chasing validation from someone who only loves the spotlight but never reciprocates the light. And that's when the power dynamic flips. Instead of begging for recognition, you become the standard. Instead of trying to impress, you become the one who must be impressed. You no longer compete for attention, because your attention is the prize. And here's where things get interesting. When you redirect that energy, the time you once spent chasing, into your growth, goals, and purpose, you become magnetic. You start radiating quiet confidence. You move differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You don't have to chase women. Women begin to chase you because your energy now feels earned, not given. Think about it. A man who spends his energy chasing ends up exhausted, unseen, forgotten. But a man who channels that same energy into his life builds gravity. He becomes the center of his own universe, and everything, including women, starts orbiting around him. That's the moment you stop living like a chaser and transform into a chooser. Your silence becomes power. Your presence becomes reward. Your focus becomes currency. And when a woman realizes that your attention is no longer guaranteed, the same ones who took you for granted will begin to fight for your notice again. Protect your attention like treasure. Give it wisely, not freely. The man who values his focus becomes unshakable. He doesn't beg to be seen. He chooses who is worthy to see him. Because once you master the power of your attention, you stop being the hunted and become the one who chooses when and to whom you give your light. And in that moment, the entire game with women changes forever. For generations, men have been trained to believe that love means reacting. If she pulls away, chase harder. If she ignores you, text more. If she disrespects you, raise your voice to prove you care. If she threatens to leave, beg. Men are taught that emotion equals devotion. But here's the painful truth. That belief has turned millions of men into emotional slaves. Women don't need physical strength to control you. Their greatest power is not beauty, not charm. It's their ability to move your emotions at will. And once they learn which buttons to press, you're no longer leading the relationship. You're being led by invisible strings. They test your anger. They test your jealousy. They test your insecurity. And every time you explode, panic, or plead, you give them proof. Proof that they can control you. She knows if silence drives you crazy, she can use it. If jealousy makes you desperate, she can trigger it. If your fear of abandonment makes you beg, she can manipulate it. Your reactions become her remote control, and the more predictable you are, the easier you are to manipulate. But something shifts the moment you learn control, when her silence no longer shakes you, when her mood swings no longer dictate your peace, when her threats no longer break your frame. Suddenly, the games stop working. Your calmness unsettles her. Your silence confuses her. Your unshakable presence forces her to meet you at your level. Because a man who controls his emotions becomes unreadable. And unreadable men are untouchable. Emotional control doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop bleeding for people who keep cutting you. It means you stop reacting and start responding. It means you learn the difference between emotion and weakness. Uncontrolled anger is not strength, it's chaos. Loud jealousy is not passion, it's insecurity. Begging for attention is not love, it's fear disguised as loyalty. Picture this. She storms out, expecting you to follow. You stay seated, calm, centered. She gives you the silent treatment, expecting a flood of apologies. You remain grounded, unbothered. She hints at leaving, expecting you to panic. You look her in the eye and say quietly, "If respect is gone, so am I." That is emotional control. That is dominance without a word. And do you know what happens next? Respect. Because real strength isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It's found in stillness, in the man who remains grounded when tested. That stillness creates mystery. And mystery creates desire. Women are drawn to men who cannot be pushed, who cannot be provoked, who cannot be emotionally controlled like toys. That is when she realizes she can't play games anymore. She must show genuine character, not theatrics. She must meet your peace with her respect. Here's what most men miss. Emotional control doesn't just change how she treats you, it changes how you see yourself. You stop apologizing for having feelings, but you no longer let feelings rule your decisions. You discover that silence is sometimes louder than anger, that walking away is sometimes the strongest statement you can make. That calmness is not weakness, it's strategy. When you master this, no guilt trip can move you. No tears can confuse you. No tantrum can trap you. Because once you control your emotions, you control the entire relationship dynamic. Not through domination, but through presence, through discipline, through emotional sovereignty. You set the rhythm, you set the tone. She either rises to your level, or she walks away. And in both cases, you keep your dignity intact. Because the man who controls his emotions controls the outcome. Without it, you will always be reactive, dancing to the rhythm of her moods. But with it, you set the rhythm. And once that happens, the game changes forever. From a young age, men are fed a dangerous lie, that women are the prize, and a man must chase, prove, and perform just to keep her attention. It's the lie that keeps men desperate. It's the lie that makes them weak. It's the lie that convinces them that if they lose one woman, they'll never find another. So they cling. They tolerate disrespect. They lower their standards. They beg for crumbs, because deep down, they believe they have no options. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Men have options too. The difference is, women's options are given, but a man's options are built. A young woman can walk into a room and turn heads. She doesn't have to prove her value. Her youth and beauty do that for her instantly. But a man earns his value. He builds his options brick by brick. Every workout in the gym, every hour of focus at work, every goal achieved, every new skill learned, every time he chooses discipline over distraction, he's not just improving himself, he's expanding his freedom. A man's options are created through effort. They're built when he invests in his body, his career, his confidence, and his purpose. Because while most men chase women, the wise man builds himself until women start chasing him. You see, a man who refuses to grow stays trapped in scarcity, emotionally, financially, and romantically. But a man who builds knows he'll never beg again. He understands that if one woman leaves, another, and often a better one, will come. And that realization alone changes everything. When you believe she's the only one, you tolerate her games. You justify her disrespect. You convince yourself to accept half-love just so you don't have to face loneliness. But when you understand your abundance, your energy changes. You stop chasing. You stop over-giving. You stop apologizing for wanting standards. Because now you know your worth, and worth changes posture. You start walking differently, speaking differently. You stop fearing rejection because you realize rejection doesn't mean loss. It means redirection towards something better. Here's the paradox that drives female psychology crazy. Women are drawn to men who don't fear losing them. When you have options, you radiate confidence. And confidence, true, quiet confidence, is magnetic. They sense that you're not afraid to walk away. And that very energy makes them want to stay. Because nothing is more attractive than a man who chooses a woman out of desire, not desperation. Once you understand your options, you stop playing small to keep her happy. You stop negotiating your self-respect for temporary affection. You stand tall, knowing that if one door closes, a dozen more will open. You're not afraid of endings. You're not afraid of silence. You're not afraid of being alone. Because you know this, alone doesn't mean empty. It means focused. And that focus builds everything: money, strength, peace, and power. The man who embraces that truth becomes truly dangerous, because you can't manipulate a man who isn't afraid to lose you. You'll notice something incredible happens when you stop chasing. Women who once ignored you suddenly start paying attention, not because you changed, but because your energy did. Scarcity creates need. Abundance creates attraction. And when you start living in abundance, you no longer need to beg for love, because you've already built something better: self-worth. A man with options doesn't fear rejection. He expects it, learns from it, and moves forward. He doesn't fear silence. He uses it to grow. He doesn't fear endings. He sees them as beginnings. That's why options are power. They remove fear. They destroy manipulation. And they give you something priceless: freedom. So build yourself until your choices multiply. Invest in your body, your mind, your money, and your peace. Because when you do, you'll never again chase love from a place of lack. You'll attract it from a place of power. Music intensifies, fades into silence. And once you know the reality of options, you stop living in desperation. You start living in freedom. And that freedom makes you untouchable. Too many men walk into relationships ready to give everything: their time, their effort, their money, their loyalty, their peace. But they leave behind the one thing that matters most: respect for themselves. They place romance above dignity, desire above standards, beauty above boundaries. And the moment they do that, they hand over their crown without even realizing it. Because here's the truth: a man without self-respect is like a kingdom without walls. Easy to enter, easy to conquer, easy to destroy. Women can sense a man without boundaries instantly. They test it, not always maliciously, but instinctively. They want to know: will he tolerate disrespect? Will he bend his rules for me? Will he let me cross his lines and still call it love? And once they realize you will, they lose respect. Not because they hate you, but because they can't trust your strength. If you can't defend your own boundaries, how can you defend a relationship? If you betray yourself to please her, how can she ever truly trust your leadership? That's the unspoken psychology of attraction. Women respect men who respect themselves. Self-respect doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about being cold or controlling or cruel. It's about standards. You draw clear lines, not to shut people out, but to show them how far they can go. You don't accept shouting disguised as passion. You don't accept manipulation disguised as love. You don't accept betrayal disguised as forgiveness. You don't allow yourself to be treated as an option while you're giving someone your everything. You remain calm, kind, respectful, but unbreakable. That's not ego, that's self-respect. Here's the paradox. The moment you put self-respect above desire, you become more attractive, not less. Because now your energy shifts, your words carry weight, your presence commands attention. You don't need to demand respect, you radiate it. Women feel it in how you walk, how you speak, how you respond when tested. They sense that you're not the kind of man who'll sell his soul just to keep their company. You become rare, you become magnetic, you become a leader, not a follower of feelings. When you reclaim self-respect, everything else in your life aligns naturally. Your attention becomes sacred, your emotions become calm, your standards rise, your peace becomes your priority. You stop chasing love, you start choosing it. And here's the beautiful twist. The moment you love yourself enough to walk away from anything that disrespects you, you finally attract someone who respects you without games. Without self-respect, you'll tolerate lies, rationalize excuses, and accept mistreatment as normal. You'll tell yourself you're being patient, when really, you're just being afraid. Afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone, afraid of facing yourself. And that fear doesn't just kill relationships, it kills the man inside you. That's the slow death, the quiet collapse of a man's spirit. But when you reclaim your self-respect, you resurrect that spirit. You stop living on your knees and start walking on your own terms. You stop begging to be loved and start demanding to be respected. And that changes everything. Because here's the ultimate truth. Love without respect is not love, it's submission. A relationship without respect is not partnership, it's prison. And a man without self-respect is already defeated before the first battle even begins. So never trade your dignity for attention. Never sacrifice your peace just to say you have someone. Never let beauty blind you into lowering your standards. Respect yourself first. Everything else, love, loyalty, peace, will follow. Because when a man finally chooses self-respect, he becomes untouchable. And when a man is untouchable, the games finally end. You've now heard the 5 truths that every man must know. And once these truths sink in, once they become a part of who you are, everything changes. You see, most men live blind. They love blindly. They give blindly. They trust blindly. And because of that blindness, they lose everything that makes them powerful. But you are no longer blind. Because now you know. You know that love is not always unconditional. It comes with terms, spoken or unspoken. You know that your attention is not cheap. It's a currency that must be guarded and spent wisely. You know your emotions are not weapons for others to use. They are tools for you to master. You know that your options are not scarce. They expand with every ounce of effort you invest in yourself. And above all, you now understand that self-respect is not negotiable. It's the foundation of everything you are. Once you embrace these truths, something profound happens inside you. You stop giving blindly. You stop chasing validation. You stop handing away your dignity in the name of love. You don't become bitter. You become awake. You become deliberate, sharp, unshakable. Picture the difference. One man begs for scraps of affection, always reacting, always chasing, always shrinking himself just to keep someone beside him. He's trapped in the illusion, believing love is something to earn instead of something to choose. Now picture the other man, the man who knows. He stands tall. He observes before giving. He protects his energy like treasure. He guards his attention. He controls his emotions. He embraces his options. And above all, he respects himself. Which one commands respect? Which one do women test but cannot control? Which one plays the game instead of being played by it? You already know the answer. This is the shift that terrifies manipulation. Because once a man becomes conscious, the old tricks stop working. The silent treatments lose their power. The emotional games fall flat. The guilt trips bounce off your composure like arrows off armor. You no longer respond to fear, you respond to truth. You no longer act out of desperation, you act out of clarity. And when that happens, the entire dynamic of power collapses. Because she realizes something she never expected. She can no longer control you. She must now respect you. Once men awaken to these truths, women don't lose. The games do. What remains is something real. Mutual respect, transparency, trust, and strength. Because only when both sides are equal in awareness can love be genuine, not manipulative. That's the ground where real connection begins. Not control, not tests, not conditions, just truth. And truth is freedom. So here's what I want you to do now. Don't just hear these truths, live them. Re-watch this video until it burns into your memory. Guard your energy, respect your boundaries, build your body, your purpose, your discipline. And when you feel weak, remember this. Once a man knows, the game is over. You are no longer the pawn. You are the player. You set the rules. You decide who earns your presence. You decide when to walk away. You decide what love looks like. And when a man reaches that level of awareness, the world changes around him. He doesn't chase peace, he creates it. He doesn't beg for respect, he commands it. He doesn't need validation, he radiates it. Because when a man finally knows his worth, he becomes something few ever achieve, untouchable. If you made it this far, you're not like most men. You're one of the few who are ready to wake up. Don't keep this awakening to yourself. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss another truth that keeps you in control of your life. Share this video with the men who need to hear it. And in the comments, write the words, "I am awake now." Because the moment you understand these truths, you stop being controlled. You start being in control. And that is when everything changes.